Hallelujah!
Hey, welcome everyone to the first episode of In Obscuria podcast. Welcome. So what is this podcast? This is what I'm calling an exhumation of obscure rock and punk and metal in one of three categories: the lost, the forgotten, or the should have beens. So what does that mean? It means that every week we're going to dissect from my personal collection either an artist or an album or a collection of songs from the broad spectrum of rock, punk, metal, from 70s bubblegum to Japanese visual kei to anything in between. And so basically, if it's left of center, if it's never been played, or if it's been forgotten, or if I just think it should have been the best band and the biggest band in the world, that's what we're going to play. So my name is Kevin Williams. I'm joined by my friend and co-host Robert Harrison.
How's it going?
And let's give a little background on who we are and why we're doing this. So I'm an avid fan of music since I guess it was middle school when I was a little skate punk and I discovered punk rock music. Turned on to by my good friend Brandon Steele, who we both know, and I'm sure we'll be talking about throughout this.
What's up, Brandon?
So anyway, moved from being a fan of all things hardcore punk and metal to wanting to play music. I've played drums, I've played guitar, I've played bass. I'm not very good at any of them, but I like to play all of them. I even sing from time to time. I've been in tons of bands, and Robert will probably allude to how we met as being part of one of those bands. But we're basically music guys who now are at the point where we want to talk about music. And I've been a fan of several podcasts for about the past 3 or 4 years, really dived into several rock podcasts, Decibel Geek, and give some shout outs to my friends, Decibel Geek, Podcast Rock City, Pod of Thunder, Cobras and Fire, Growing Up Rock podcast. There's a ton of them, great podcasts that are out there. If you're not listening to any of those, go check them out. They were my inspiration for doing this. I've hosted on, or guest hosted from time to time on a few of those podcasts, so that's the reason I want to dive into this now.
Do we get sponsorship money from them if we mention them?
We get nothing. That's the great thing about podcasting. It's just like being in a band, Robert, where you play original music. You get nothing.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You spend more than you make, but you have a blast doing it, right?
And you remember some of it.
They tell you that you have a good time, and you see pictures, so you know you were there.
Yeah, I have pictures.
So anyway, I've got a whole shit ton of records and music and stuff that I want people to hear. And some of you may say, that's not deep, man. I go deeper than that. Well, that's whatever. This is my podcast and I'm going to play what I want.
I promise you, he's probably going to stump me every single time, even though I've known him for over 20 years and I've heard most of his collection. This guy is an encyclopedia of music and never ceases to surprise me with some of the things he pulls out of his collection.
Uranus.
That's at the end of the
question.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
cool. So Robert, I think it's going to take about maybe 120 episodes before we unravel the enigma, the complexity of the human being that is Robert Harrison. That's the reason I picked this guy to be my co-host. He's a jack of all trades. We'll have stories where you're like, this guy does this too. I mean, it's just. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about who you are and how you got here?
Well, you're responsible for some of those twists and turns. I think we've known each other for just over 20 years now. Yeah, math, somewhere in there. And Kevin and I met when I moved in next door to him. I think we met at the mailbox or something like that. We got to talk and found out he was a musician. I was a musician.
That was not a gay bar, by the way.
No, that was not.
Yeah.
No, that was a different one. Not that there's anything wrong with it. We met and started talking about music within probably 30 seconds of meeting and found out he plays all kinds of instruments. I was pretty much a guitar player. I was stuck with that. So I became the guitar player and we started writing together. And that was something that I had never written with other people before. And it was a quick learning experience. We had a great time. Before we knew it, we had a band. And then before we knew it, we were making CDs, those things that they had back then. And then we had shows. We went out on kind of a tour. We had a band van. We have the band van. It's still parked across the street in a vacant lot because it's just the world's most badass band van ever.
At some point, we should tell the story of Moose because it's amazing.
We could do an entire podcast
Moose
on that.
is the van.
It's epic. It's got a backstory like you wouldn't believe. Some of it's true, but anyway, so yeah, Kevin opened the door to something that has been a massive part of my life, which is being able to perform on stage. There's nothing like it. It's the best adrenaline rush in the world, and I wish everybody could experience that. But in between those short 1 hour sets on stage, or maybe 2 hour sets on stage, there was a lot of time sitting around before the show, after the show, sitting in the van, driving to the gigs, and inevitably we were talking about music. We were listening to music and talking about it, and it just was nonstop. And those were the earliest podcasts ever. So this is basically kind of come full circle where we're back together again talking about music, which is one of our favorite things to do.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Robert. And we'll dive much deeper into our background because there's a whole history there, and we'll get into it as we go through the episodes, I think. I have to do the normal plug yourself kind of thing, especially since we're brand new and I'm trying to get folks to listen. So please check us out, inobscuria.com, INOBSCURIA. You're listening to it. You know how to spell it. Why am I spelling it? Anyway, we have Facebook, so like us, share us, recommend us on Facebook. We have Twitter, we have Instagram, and hopefully by the time this is up, I'll actually post to some of those. Or else it'll just be empty and you can go post to it. So let's dive into how we're gonna do the show. So every week I will probably be conducting either a seance or going to my magic 8-ball to see who we're gonna exhume.
We're the grave robbers.
I'm gonna go down to the crypt and I'm gonna pull something that somebody thought was dead long ago. So I was shaking my magic 8-ball, plural, shaking my magic 8-ball earlier, and the first thing that came up was the theme of this week, which is from the 90s, rock, punk, and metal time capsule.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, and it makes sense, right? When did we met in 98, maybe?
Yes.
97, 98, somewhere around there. So it only makes sense that this is where we'll start our podcast. This is kind of where we started our musical journey together. So let's dive right into it. So the way this is going to work is I'm basically pulling from my collection, right? Robert has no clue who I'm about to play.
That is true.
So
I have no clue about a lot of things.
Yep. Remains clueless. That's why I picked him. So what I'm going to do is from the Magic 8-Ball, it told me exactly who I need to pick. I went and picked him. We're going to play the song. I'm going to do a little intro on it. We're going to play the song, and then I'm just going to let Robert kind of give his feedback on what we just heard. If you like it, again, go to those social sites and tell us what you like, or if you didn't like it, say you're full of shit, and just let us know that. So with that, we're going to go to the first song here. And let me get all queued up. All right, so the first band I actually heard, I graduated college way back in 95.
You're old.
I'm old. And I remember going back to my alma mater because it was only, so we live in Atlanta. I guess we should mention that. We're in Atlanta, Georgia, US of A. So anyway, I would go back from time to time to my college. It was about 2.5 hours away. Just because I still had friends that were going to school when I graduated. And they had this really, really cool record shop called Manifest Records. And this is in a town called Clemson, South Carolina. And it was my favorite go-to place. I must have spent hours upon hours in that store over the course of my 6 or 7 years it took me to graduate college. And this is one of those. They used to have walls. So back in the day, we didn't go to the internet for our music. We went to record shops, CDs, and they would have these sections where they would have recommendations. And this was one of those stores where I just trusted what they had. And this was one of those records that they had posted up on the recommendation station. I went and listened to it and thought, oh man, this is badass. So this is a band called Sugartooth. You ever heard of them?
I have not.
Okay, surprise. So the album, so they had 2 albums. They were actually signed, I believe, to Geffen Records, which is a pretty big record company, especially at the time. but it's when all of these grunge, post-grunge bands were getting gobbled up, and this just happens to be one of those bands that got signed really early on in their short career. And it's got two guys that you've never heard of on vocals and guitar and bass, but the drummer is a guy that a lot of people know. His name is Joey Castillo. You ever heard of Joey?
I think he works at the oil change place down the street here.
That's
doesn't
him.
he? That's him.
No, Joey played in a punk rock band called Wasted Youth back in the 80s.
Oh,
and then
yes.
he joined this band, Sugartooth. And he left Sugartooth because Sugartooth only lasted two albums. He left them and joined a group you may have heard of called Danzig.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Glenn.
he joined another couple of groups, but he ended up in a band called Queens of the Stone Age.
Aha, I see the lineage there.
He was
It's
in a
quite the
band
pedigree.
called Eagles of Death Metal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I've totally heard of those guys.
All right. And then he's currently in a band that I love, who I'm going to play on this show at some point, called the Bronx. But anyway, this drummer's amazing. Again, these guys were on Geffen, and they just didn't, with all the bands that were out at the time, I just don't think they got their fair shake. But let's take a listen. This is Sugartooth from The Sounds of Solid from 1996 with the track Frisbee, which is track 11 of 12. Check it out. All right, that was Sugartooth. What'd you think, man?
I can definitely hear them opening up for Soundgarden in 1994, maybe 95, somewhere in there.
Well, let's see how good you are. Let's see. This band, so they had a modest hit after appearing on an episode of Beavis and Butthead back in the day with their first album, but this is off of their second album. But you were absolutely correct in the bands that they opened for. So they actually opened for Slayer, Super Suckers, Stone Temple Pilots, and Soundgarden.
Nice.
Very good pull. What'd you think of the production?
I mean, when you're talking about that genre of grungy type music, it seemed to fit right in almost. I'm going to offend a lot of people if I mention the word Tool, but with the vocals and kind of a simple mix that it has, but it definitely has more of the Soundgarden guitar leads on it. And I know you definitely like the bass centric verses that it has when it's just a bass ripping through it.
Oh yeah, and I actually think the players on it. So it was Mark Hutner on guitar and Josh Bloom on bass. I don't know what happened to those guys. The wiki didn't go into it, but they were solid, I thought, which makes sense because they were on an album called Sounds of Solid. But the production. So guess who produced this album?
Bob Ezra.
No, it was the Dust Brothers. Do you know who the Dust Brothers are? So they're these L.A. producers that did like they did Beastie Boys, they did Beck's Odelay, they did Fight Club soundtrack. They were like
Okay.
a big '90s, 2000 kind of producer. But it's weird because what I heard was like Steve Albini, kind of like that Chicago, just raw sound, which I thought was interesting that it's the Dust Brothers who produced that.
That fits. I mean, I love when people refer to the raw sound because it also means low production value, which makes me think of some of our recordings.
Hey man, I actually love live albums. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, live albums suck, but I loved hearing what the actual instruments sound like in a room. That's just me.
I don't need 53 tracks of layers to get a point across. I do too. I agree.
Anyway, I thought that it was weird to me that I didn't know that band had any hits or that they had had any success at all, because when I heard them, I didn't hear them anywhere else other than my CD player at the time. But anyway, I just thought it was really cool. Let's try that. All right, so the second song that I want to play is actually not nearly as obscure as I could have gone, but just happens to be one of my favorite songs of all time. So I'm going to go a little goth on this. We're going to go a little goth for this next one.
It is that time of year.
Well, and it was the 90s. So in the 80s, there was a band some people may have heard of called Sisters of Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so pretty big goth staple. They didn't really have that many albums, had a few albums. Anyway, that band, the main guy in that band stayed. The rest of the band kind of split from him and formed two different bands. And one of the bands is the band I'm going to play. They're called The Mission. In the States, they had to go by the name The Mission UK. So for the longest time, I knew them as The Mission UK. I didn't realize that was just something they had to stick on at the end because there was an R&B band. I hear our third co-host.
That's our celebrity co-host. He's going to come in a little bit later. That is none other than Ronnie James D.O.G.
That's D.O.G.
He's the original D.O.G.
That's right. So anyway, don't want to get too much into it. Like I said, they were a fairly large band, but they're kind of in that forgotten place because I never hear anybody talk about The Mission. But they did do really some big shows. They played some big festivals. They've had a ton of albums. I think they had 10 albums in total. In fact, they just had one that came out maybe 2 years ago. But this is off of Carved in Sand, which is their third studio album. It came out in 1990, so it just makes the grade here. But I remember being at my grandparents' house. I guess I should back up. I grew up in a small town where they didn't allow MTV until like 2000. I mean, it was crazy. The cable station there did not have MTV.
You had to pipe in sunlight. You're so far in the woods.
So I would go to my grandparents' house, which was another tiny town, but they had MTV. So I would stay up. I'd go there on the weekends if we were visiting, and I would stay up. I'd ask if I could sleep on the couch, and I would stay up all night and watch MTV because I never got to watch it. And this song actually came on. They had a video for it, and it was a pretty kick-ass. If I remember, I only saw it once, but it was a live setting, and it was they just really kicked ass. And I thought this song was so catchy and just really rocking. So this is The Mission UK from Carved in Sand, 1990. The song is called Deliverance. This is track 5 out of 10. Here you go.
lies in the cunning of hope, in the weaving of dreams. And the lady of the lake takes my hand and leads me to the holy isle, and the fairy rings and the circles of stone forever and again. Get me, get me, get me, deliverance, brother, sister. Give me, deliverance, deliver me. Surrender to the wisdom of age and the spirits of time. Remember, our souls entwined for eternity, and the healing hand of the fairy queen will come to all who have faith in her, and the apple tree will bear its fruit in the gardens of heaven forever and again. Give me, deliverance, brother, sister. Give me, deliverance, deliver me. Give me, deliverance, brother, sister. Give me, deliverance, deliver me. Let me sleep a while and dream of Avalon and the belting vines. The silent kiss steals away into the mist and out to the lake, where the sword will rise again from the water into the hands of the chosen one, the righteous one, forever and again. Give me, deliverance, brother, sister. Give me, deliverance, deliver me. Give me, deliverance, brother, sister. Give me, deliverance, deliver me. Brother, sister, give me, deliverance, deliver me. Give me, deliverance, brother, sister. Give me, deliverance, deliver me. Give me, deliverance, brother, sister. Give me, deliverance, deliver me.
The Mission UK with Deliverance.
That totally brought me back to the 80s. I could absolutely picture that song being played as part of a montage towards the end of a vampire movie.
It had kind of that Lost Boys.
Lost
That
Boys.
gives you that Lost Boys.
It
image or
totally.
something.
They're running through the city at night for whatever reason. It's just perfect for that. If you took the synth out of it, it definitely reminded me of the Cult. But with the synth intro, it was 1986, 87 all over again, which is not a bad thing.
And that's where these guys got started. I mean, they were, I think 87 was the last Sisters album that these guys were on. Wayne Hussey, who's the singer, the timbre of his voice always has that the Colt's a good pull, but I always got kind of a Jim Morrison feel from
that
it too.
Absolutely.
A lot of the goth bands had that deep baritone kind of thing going on, but his is it's just really powerful, and he has kind of a screamy voice at times too, which is really good to kind of mix up what he's doing, the deeper register. They were as much rock as they were goth, so it was kind of a good mix. They had a little bit of pop sensibility, and they were, before they recorded this, they were touring with The Cure, so it just makes sense to me. They were like a bridge between that 80s goth into the 90s.
They probably had black eyeliner, maybe not black fingernails.
Yeah, if I
Not
I mean, I
full
don't think
into
you're
the
far
goth.
off. If I remember, they sort of looked like they could have been in the Doors. They were wearing like kind of psychedelic. Remember that late 80s kind of throwback to the 60s?
Oh yeah, the
vibe
divinals and all of that.
but they were doing like a darker version of it.
Interesting.
So
I picture them all in leather and leather pants and just
Exactly, trying to be Jim Morrison.
hair that hasn't been washed in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, but anyway, it was really cool. I always liked that band, and they have a ton of good albums. So at some point, I may just decide to do a full Mission podcast, and we'll just kind of hit the highlights. But we'll
I
see.
would
We'll
not
see
be
what the
opposed to
seance.
that. I
We'll see
liked
what
it.
the seance and what the Magic 8 Ball tells me.
Well, so far you're 2 for 2. I like those.
All right, cool. I was expecting a little conjecture here, so
Just wait.
maybe the
It's
next
coming.
maybe the next song
It's
we'll
coming.
get there. So we're gonna jump right into the next one, and you'll probably know this one, or at least you should.
Oh man.
And the reason I say that is when Robert and I were in a band, we were in a band called Big Jack Pneumatic, and we had 2 different incarnations of it. First, we were a 3-piece. And then I decided, I played mostly drums, and then I decided I wanted to play bass because I'm not very good at anything, but I like to jump around. And so we got a
The
drummer.
truth is he didn't want to carry all the drums.
That is absolutely the truth. That is absolutely the truth. Being a drummer sucks.
It does.
You got all that gear. And you tried to get me back into it not too long ago, and I'm like, it's just too much gear. I just can't do it. So anyway, we got a drummer. It was a guy from Illinois who's an amazing drummer. His name's Kent Arberly. And he moved from...
Mattoon, no, what was it? Not Mattoon, Illinois.
he's going to kill us if
Oh, I
he's listening
know.
to this.
Sorry, Kent.
Not Champaign.
No. Effingham.
Effingham. There we go.
Effingham.
There we go.
Effingham.
Anyway, he brought all of his awesome Midwest bands that we had never heard of, and he introduced us to a lot of them. And this next one is one of those bands. They're called Poster Children.
Yes.
Yeah. So Kent used to talk about the Poster Children all the time. I think he knew them personally. They're real indie rock, DIY, sort of punk, sort of not. Truly alternative band. The singer, guitarist, and the bass player are married, and I think they do everything themselves. They're like true artists. In fact, I believe I looked up that they are currently professors at the Arts Technology program at Illinois State University currently.
Nice.
And they're also still in the Poster Children. The Poster Children still play. And they also host a podcast, actually, called Radio Zero, and that's been going on since 1999. I didn't even know there was a podcast in 1999.
I was pretty sure it was invented in the late 2000s, but I can be completely wrong with that.
So this is a fairly obscure band. I think if you're in the Midwest, you're going to be like, duh, everybody knows this band. But down here, I'd never heard of them until Kent came into our picture and introduced us to them. And it's a really killer band. I picked a song off of an album that I just found at a local used record store. And I found they had this whole collection of all of these 90s albums that I guess a college radio station had, and they got rid of all of their inventory. And they took it to this one record store that I shop at. And so I was just pulling all sorts of stuff. And this was one of the albums I pulled. It's called Junior Citizen. It came out in 1995. And it was I believe it was their 4th real album. It was on Sire, so they got signed to Reprise, and then they got kind of passed down to all the different labels that Warner had that were smaller. This album's on Sire, so it's not like this band was completely obscure. They did a lot of DIY stuff afterwards, a lot of releasing their own things, and they always drove in a van and did the whole punk ethos of do everything yourself. But anyway, I pulled the song, which is track number 2, which is the title track called Junior Citizen. So enjoy the poster children.
Tonight we launch the bird, start to spread the word. We punch through the atmosphere with the signal loud and clear. We're searching for the truth and some new recruits to join us in the war with the empire of the Dixie Narco number 6, Chemical Billy, Dr. Smith, communications by MLN. Together we are the Junior Citizen Band. BCJC USA, Junior Citizens on satellite. UCK, tell her I'm okay. Junior Citizens on satellite. AEIOU, sometimes why? Junior Citizens on satellite. 24/7, 365. Junior Citizens on satellite. Violins with guitars, broadcast from the stars. The only weapons here are our mouth, mind, eyes, and ears. There are no leaders, there are no rules. It isn't TV, it's not high school. No more uniforms, we don't care about the color of your shirt, shoes, skin, or hair. Delta Station, KCUM, Junior Citizens on satellite. You don't know what you can do, what you can. Junior Citizens on satellite. Damn it, what's the frequency? Junior Citizens on satellite. Dial 1-900 anarchy. Junior Citizens on satellite. Light the candle, start the show. Push the button, all systems go. It's our mission to dominate the territories of inner and outer space. ACJC USA, Junior Citizens on satellite. UCK, tell her I'm okay. Junior Citizens on satellite.
Yes.
And
I have to say, I never saw them back in the day. I remember us talking about them playing them, but if I'd seen them back in the day, I definitely would have bought some of their merchandise and then downloaded their music illegally. But there's just nothing better than power chords. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion right there. There's a time and a place for minor chords, but every once in a while, you got to have some balls to the wall rock and roll. It's just fun to sing. I mean, that one, I'd never heard the song, but by the end of it, you can repeat the chorus. If you're standing there at the show, you got your devil horns up in the air, you can repeat the song and sing it to everybody. It's just a good time. It's upbeat, get your blood moving, makes you want to get out of bed and go to the office if I had to do that, but I don't. So like I said, that's just my personal opinion. You're always going to hit some songs that are new and they're different, that kind of broaden my horizons, but that brings it back to what you and I used to play, which was just fun rock. And most of it was upbeat. I think we had one kind of slow song, and it wasn't even that slow. So, it's just,
still rocked.
It's still rocked. And like I said, that's the stuff that I like. It's not going to set any records or, chart any new territory, but I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that band, they have some trippier, more arty stuff, but for the most part, they just rocked, and they were kind of straddling in between all these different genres of rock and punk and everything that I love. They actually, when that album came out, they played that summer, they played the second stage of Lollapalooza. So they did okay. I don't remember 95 who that was. Was that the...
Oh, wow. Yeah,
That
you're
wasn't
asking
the
me
Pearl
to
Jam one. That
really
was
go back.
No, 93 was Alice in
I
Chains.
can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. Let's
I kind of lose track after like Lala number 3. But anyway.
We played around the same time with another band here locally called Blacklight Poster Boys.
They may crop up at some point.
And that actually reminded me of that. Not just the name, but just fun rock.
Did have that kind of sound, Blacklight Poster Boys. Shout out to Curtis.
What's up, Curtis?
All right, so this next song, I will go on and say that this probably is one of my favorite songs of all time.
Oh, wow.
And it's weird because this is one of those bands, they only did one album. They only had one single. Well, they may have had 2 singles, but they only had one single that did fairly well. This was the song. So while it's obscure, this was a minor hit at the time, but it's long since forgotten. And the rest of the album sounds nothing like this song. And
let me just apologize right now. I've known you for over 20 years, and I don't know what your favorite song is. I don't know what your favorite color is.
I said one of my favorites.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's kind of an oddball too. It's like a bit of a listen. In retrospect, it's a little bit cheesy, but it's really of the time. But I like cheese.
Well, I think I don't shy away for some cheese. Yeah, neither one of us.
So I'm not going to go too far into it. There's not a lot on this band. I think this guy who wrote the song, he still plays, and he does like film scores or writes music for TV shows and things like that. But they had this one album. The band is called The Men.
Okay.
And you know the song, don't you?
Okay.
All right. So in '92, this song came out. It's called. The album was called The Men. It was by The Men. There were actually 2 women in the band. Men. And there's also a band from Brooklyn now, like a indie band called The Men. So it's very...
Oh, not the Walkmen?
No, there's the Walkmen, but there's also The Men.
The Men.
In Brooklyn. So this is not the Brooklyn band. This is, I believe, there's from Santa Monica. 1992, this song is called Church of Logic, Sin, and Love.
They weren't surprised by the wind and rain. They took off east. I think that's what they did. They were just 2 of the wildest bored creatures on earth, fed up with work, strip bars, and loneliness galore. In an old Oldsmobile that one of them bought off their father, they ate up so much road they was grinning. Then they came upon the thing. Church of Logic, Sin, 2 hours later, they decided to stop at a diner because they just loved the smell of eggs and coffee. I just had to smoke a cigarette and wear a hat. By the time that they set off again, the sun was starting to set. It made the sky look red like a nuclear ray. One of them said, "What do you want more than anything in this whole wide world? Do you want money? Do you want sex? Or do you want all that success?" I thought about that myself. Then they came upon the thing. This is real, this is now, this is a freak show, baby, anyhow. Oh, the church of logic, sin and love heals the curious magic soul. Big time drama from head to toe, cactus band on rodeo. Oh, the church of logic, sin and love. Hey, yeah! The thing ahead 60 miles, do not miss. Not for the squeamish or depressed, not for the unbelievers truly obsessed. Something you just don't want to miss. It's the kind of place where space explorers could have landed around 1963, when Kennedy was in Life magazine and everything was aquamarine. Aquamarine.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah,
Trip. That was a trip back.
That
right?
was a very pleasant trip back. You didn't stump me on that one, but yes, that was an amazing 4-minute long journey back to a time when alt rock was the dominant player on terrestrial radio, which is all I had back then, and some cassettes. And that song, it was different because of the spoken word style verse, and then it was pleasantly alternative, but yet it had not one but two ripping guitar solos in that, which
and the
is
tone, man, on that
yeah,
guitar. I love
when
that
it punches
guitar.
in the second time. But we both looked at each other when it punched in the second time, and that's sorely missing from alt rock these days. It's missing, and I wish it was still there.
And what's really weird is, and I love that song, and I remember I had the tape, and I actually have the CD as well, which I don't know that you can find it anymore. But the rest of the album is real mellow and not in that same rockin' vein. But that song, man, that is one of the most memorable songs in my collection. I just immediately, it takes me back to 1992. I'm driving to summer school. I'm staying at home after my freshman year in college, and I'm driving up to a university that was about, 30, 40 minutes away every day for summer school that summer. And I just remember I would crank that song just almost every day. It got me through the chemistry that I had to do in that summer, that particular summer school.
Okay, my memories weren't as clear. I think that was about the time that it was a little bit after I got kicked out of a fraternity in college. So, I was rolling it alone at that point. And I'm going to have to go back and look at my minimal collection. I hate to even call it a collection. It's like 2 little small travel cases of CDs, but I am pretty sure I've got that CD because that sounds way too familiar. I'm pretty sure I listened to that one. And I agree. Everything else in the album, that was back when you would go out and buy a CD because you heard one song on the radio, and then you would get in your car and you'd be so disappointed because
Right.
that was the only song, and you just spent $9 for one song, and you're just kicking yourself.
So you know what I just figured out? I know what it's like to be a teenage girl in 1988 with what you just said, because every girl that was a teenager in 1988 would hear the syrupy power ballad on the radio,
God.
and they'd go out and they'd buy the Cinderella
Don't
album.
know what you got till it's gone.
And then they'd listen to the rest of it going, what is this? It's cock rock.
That was the end of every hair band at that point because the record companies realized, that's all we could sell, that one song.
And I think this band actually kind of bridges that gap of that whole hair metal scene was going away and alternative was coming in. And even though they're nowhere near punk, which, a lot of the alternative bands pulled from at the time, this is definitely one of those transitional songs, I think.
No, that was, once again, it was a time when kind of anything went. Back early 90s to the mid 90s, alternative was a pretty broad term. And once again, a song that had spoken word.
It wasn't even a term.
Versus, it was a term. Yes, exactly.
It was if I remember right, it was college music.
College music, college
or
rock.
something like that.
Yeah, it was college rock.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna keep on the early '90s theme here. So the next year, 1993. Again, I'm just gonna go to my personal background here. I'm doing an internship. I'm trying to get out of college. I'm doing an internship. I'm at this printer.
You're wearing khaki pants and tennis shoes because that's what you were wearing when I met you.
Probably right.
You just came home from work in khaki pants and white tennis shoes.
I was killing the ladies.
You were killing the ladies. This is
killing the
before you
ladies.
met your fashion designer that you married.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I remember I'm working at this printer because somebody got me a job at this print shop, and there's this old guy who's doing I don't know, some of the manual like color stripping, which is how it's not stripping, by the way, but it's called color stripping. So anyway, printing stuff.
That's a different podcast.
Different podcast. Anyway, this guy, he would tell me all these bands that he saw. He was probably, at the time, he was probably in his 50s. And he would tell me about, oh, man, I saw Hendrix. I saw the Kinks when they first came to the U.S. So he saw all these amazing shows. So we bonded over this. And one morning, he used to listen to NPR. And one morning he came in and he's like, man, I heard a band you got to hear on NPR. I'm like, okay.
And
all
that's
right.
where we get all of our music tips from.
That's what I listen to. Not. So lay it on me. And he's like, oh, you got to hear this Heavy Liquid. And he didn't know the name of the band. He's like, Heavy Liquid. I'm like, what is Heavy Liquid? So you got to listen to Heavy Liquid. And so finally I found, I don't know, in a magazine or something, there's a band called The Hypnotics. And they're from England, and they had, they're kind of a garage psychedelic band. But in 1993, they have an album that's produced by Chris Robinson, Black Crowes. And so this is kind of their bridge to, they're English, so this is kind of their bridge to America. They get Chris Robinson to produce it. It's on American Records, which I think was part of Def Jam, Def American, that sort of thing.
They couldn't do that now because of the whole Brexit thing.
You're right. Anyway, didn't know where you're going with that one. But anyway, so they have like a kind of a retro 70s, 60s kind of sound, but this song is badass. That dude was right on. And I actually, a couple of weeks ago, I sent this to Aaron Camaro, the Decibel Geek, because I was listening to it like, oh, Aaron needs to know about this song. He would dig this. So let's see if you dig it. It's called Heavy Liquid. It's not a short song. It's like 7 minutes, but man, it's 7 minutes of heavy liquid. what'd you think, man?
So Lenny Kravitz got to start playing with them, right?
Yeah, Lenny had already been out for a while, but man, when I heard that, I was like, whoa, because I was just getting into like early '70s, kind of digging into some of that groovy, like grand funk kind of stuff, and it sounded like the music I was just kind of getting introduced to, but it was new. And I was like, oh my god! And to me, it doesn't really sound anything like the Black Crowes. But I get the whole production vibe. It does have a very similar production vibe to some of the Black Crow stuff, except the guitar is just so fuzzy and awesome.
I mean, it started off, we were looking at each other trying to figure out if that was a bass running through about 15 different effect pedals or if that was a guitar. Baritone guitar or something. But that was straight out of late 60s, early 70s. And then the lyrics kick in and he's talking about waking up on a Sunday morning with liquid metal or
heavy. He's been drinking too much.
Yeah, and I'm like, I've been there. I can definitely empathize with that. And he captured the feeling of waking up with the bass line reminding me of my head throbbing like it always did about first thing Sunday morning, getting up and trying to get moving. But yeah, I mean, I've heard some psychedelic influences of the Black Crowes. They've dabbled in that, and you could tell that they wanted to go further with it. But this was a great example of just a nice blend of some grungy psychedelic rock.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember my Black Crowes album off the top of my head, but I think this was around the time of Amorica. Maybe this influenced a little bit of Amorica, because Amorica to me had a little bit more of an edge to it. It was a little bit more of a darker album, and I think this was around the same time. So, possibly could have influenced it. And these guys, again, they're from England. They would play the Viper Room, and they were kind of trendy at the time, but they just never quite broke. And I think the bass player quit before this album was recorded, and they went to their original bass player, and he OD'd before they even recorded. And so the guy that had left came back, and they recorded this album. So, it was a pretty heavy album. You can hear it in kind of the music, kind of what the band's going through, just putting everything out there. And the whole album's like that. I mean, it's a brilliant album. And I actually, last year they re-released all of the Hypnotic stuff on vinyl. And I picked up the box set, and they have 4 albums, and they're all brilliant. It's really, really good. So if you can find it, check it out, or just go YouTube it. All right, so I got one more song to play out, and Robert knows that it wouldn't be me unless I threw some progressive rock in here somehow.
So for the next 20 minutes.
So enjoy the next 35-minute track. No, not quite that bad. This band is another one of those that I found at Manifest Music in Clemson when I was there, and there was a guy that worked there, and he was a metal dude, and he was always trying to get me to pick up these albums that he liked, which were like real screamy guys, and I wasn't really into the death metal screamy kind of thing at the time. Because I have more of a punk rock background, but I liked everything, but I just wasn't into that kind of metal. And he's like, you need to check out this band. And there were 2 bands he turned me on to that year. One was Caius. It was an amazing band, right? And later on they become Queens of the Stone Age. And this band, which is a band called Mind Over 4.
No.
Nope.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah. So anyway, they had 5 albums. And this is off of their 4th album. Happens to be my favorite album. The album before this, I think from an industry perspective, did better. I think they had like a minor hit, although it was still fairly underground. And before this album came out, the singer of this band actually auditioned for Anthrax. It was around the time when Joey Belladonna left Anthrax, and this guy Spike Xavier went for the gig with Anthrax, but John Bush from Armored Saint ended up getting that gig. But I don't see, I mean, I know why they didn't pick him, because when you hear this guy's voice, it's like, honestly, it's slightly off key, but it's cool. Like, it's...
You never said that about my guitar. It was just off key.
I said it about your vocals all the time.
Oh, okay.
You could have sung for this band. I'm just kidding, man. Just kidding.
Thank you, Autotune.
It's kind of... Thank God for Autotune. But anyway, it's an interesting voice, and to me, the real star of this band is the guitarist, and you can tell he's a jazz dude, because the chords he plays they don't really make sense.
Yeah, that's the epitome of jazz.
Yeah, pretty much. but it rocks at the same time. So this band started off as like a hardcore kind of punk band, and then they morphed into this metal / progressive metal band by the time they ended. And I think they hung it up in 1995. But again, this is from 93. This is Mind Over 4 off of the album called Halfway Down. And this is track 12 of 13. The song's called Funny Pocket. So check out Funny Pocket. Pretty standard chord progression.
Oh yeah, straight 4/4.
straightforward.
Oh yeah, 3.5 minutes in and out, verse, chorus, verse. I have to say that was pretty accurate air drumming you were doing during the song there. I was very impressed.
Thanks. I'm a pretty much a star air drummer.
Good to see your chops still there.
Yeah, I know it's a really weird and I picked the weirdest song on the whole album. It's just a weird band, and for some reason I just love it. I love all the twists and turns.
But I'm glad you mentioned the part about him auditioning for Anthrax, because during that I could picture that. It was close. It was close.
I don't think I could. I don't think I could see it.
I'm not saying it would have been perfect, but I could see it fitting in somewhere in that realm of what we know as Anthrax.
I thought it's something I saw on Wikipedia that I thought was kind of cool about this band is, I guess, a claim to fame, if you will. It says on the back cover photo of the Pantera album, Vulgar Display of Power, Phil Anselmo can be seen wearing one of the band's T-shirts.
Wow. That is the most
They made it.
obscure
They made it.
reference to still say you made it.
That was in the Wikipedia.
They were stretching. They were really stretching. I mean, come on. They could have called this guy's brother in Iowa somewhere and asked, hey, what's he up to these days?
I thought that was pretty awesome, though. It's like, dude, Phil's wearing our T-shirt on the back of one of their albums. I would actually be the same way. I would put that on my Facebook cover.
I was there. Yeah, I got. Hey, you know what? We've had our picture taken with whom?
I don't know. Who did we have?
Gene. Oh, come on. Gene and Paul.
We paid for that.
You don't have to tell people that.
There's a difference when you pay for it.
It doesn't say that in the picture. It's just the picture of us hanging out with Gene and Paul.
There's an obscure band for you.
Yeah, super obscure. We'll dive into that one day.
So obscure they have their own cruise.
money,
Robert
money,
and
money.
Robert and I went on Kiss Cruise 5.
I think it's number 5. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time. But that's a for
different
another day.
podcast, and
That's
I'm still paying off the alcohol tab for that cruise.
That's the other 6 podcasts I listen to. They talk about that. So we'll leave that to Mr.
Shout
Joe
out
Polo
to yes,
all the rest of the crew. So hey, man, thanks for hanging out with me in episode 1.
that was a lot of fun. I appreciate the Wayback Machine, the memories. I like the new stuff. Is this playlist going to be available on SoundCloud?
You know what?
What do the kids
podcast
listen
will
to
be
these
on
days?
SoundCloud. What we should do is
You should have a playlist where I can just listen to the music without having to hear myself.
it would be kind of an interesting game to see if we could build a Spotify playlist. I guarantee
that.
you
I
most
like
of
that.
these songs will not be there, but we can try.
Well, are you allowed to upload your own songs
You're
and
not
then,
allowed
and then
to
listen
upload your
to
own
it?
songs, no. But if we can try, it would be an interesting game to see how obscure is in obscuria. Can it be
how
found
many
on
songs?
Spotify?
Well, today's episode we got at least one. I know.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We had the men.
I would say the Men was probably be. I would say the Mission would definitely be on there as well.
Yeah, definitely Mission.
But anyway, thanks so much for listening. Again, go to inobscuria.com. We're on the Facebook, on the Twitter. We're on the Insta thing. We're on all the social. That's how cool we are.
All 3 of them.
All 3 of them, actually. That's how cool we are. Hey, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Rock on.